Hello everyone, Pithy here, and I'm back with another episode of Pithy's Budget Brews, and today I'm talking about Valduk, Keeper of Flame. And Valduk says, at the beginning of combat on your turn, for each aura and equipment attached to Valduk, Keeper of the Flame, create a 3/1 red elemental creature token with Trample and Haste. Exile those tokens at the beginning of the next end step. So, as you can kind of tell from what Valduk reads, is you kind of want to have a lot of equipments and or auras, or a combination of, like a balance of the two. This is more of an equipment deck with some auras in it. So, we're going to go right in with, since the deck is mostly focused on equipments, we have essentially like the backup versions of like Valduk in terms of like Voltroning. Because this is literally what you want to do with him for the most part, is, stack a bunch of equipment on him and then swing in. Of course, you get the huge army as well, so then you also get in damage that way. But these are kind of like the backup versions of like a way to win the game. Essentially like stacking equipments. So like Army Automaton, 3 mana 2/2, whenever it enters the battlefield or attacks, you may attach any number of targeted equipment to it. So it's basically just like a free equipped for all your equipments essentially. Just you put all the equipments there, and also it's not just your equipments; it's any equipment on the battlefield. So it can be like from your opponent and stuff like that. But it does say target equipment, so if they were to have like Shroud or Hexproof or something like that, you couldn't get them from your opponents. We also have Kazul's Toll Collector, 3 mana 3/2, 0 attached target equipment you control to Kazul's Toll Collector, and you can only activate it as a sorcery. Same thing with that. It's just free activations of it. Now, of course, people can respond to it and kill it in response, and you can't really do anything about it. But kind of the same thing with the Automaton in a way as well. And then Voltron Battermaster, 5 mana 2/2 haste. When it comes into play, attach all equipment in play to it. So this is the same thing as Armory Automaton. You just get all the equipment onto Voltron Battlemaster, except in a way that Voltron Battlemaster is a little bit better, because it does have haste, and you'd have to have a haste equipment on Armory Automaton to get it to attack immediately. But both of them are really good ways to kind of just like cheat mana costs. Same with the Toll Collector. So the Toll Collector is kind of like an unconventional way to do it, because you got like trigger it, so activate it so many times to get all the equipments that you have. And it's only you control as well, whereas Battlemaster and Automaton actually steal it from the opponents. Now we go into the actual equipments. These are some of the best equipments in the deck. Hammer of Nazan, 4 mana. Whenever it or another equipment enters the battlefield under your control, you may attach that equipment to target creature you control. The creature has +2/+0 and indestructible, and the equip cost is 4. But usually that doesn't matter too much. At least when you first play it, it's just a 4 and it immediately equips. And this is a staple in any equipment-based deck, because it just cheats mana costs so efficiently. It's pretty disgusting. It's one of the more powerful equipments I think that they've printed in a long time. So it's just great, and it's basically an auto-include, even though like its price tag is kind of expensive for an equipment, but it's amazing. Loxodon Warhammer, 3 mana, and then it has equip, creature gets +3/+0, and has lifelink and trample at equip cost of 3. So this is another staple, essentially, in the majority of decks that want to play equipments, and even some decks that don't want to play equipments. Just play Loxodon Warhammer because it's that good. Having the lifelink and the trample when you're already making a huge creature is great, because it just gets in damage and also gains you tons of life, because you're not going to have too many creatures. In fact, there's only 6 creatures in the deck total, not including Valduk. So having life gain is pretty important, so Loxodon Warhammer is great. Blackblade Reforged, 2 mana, equipped creature gets +1/+1 for each land you control, equipped legendary creature, and it's 3. For the actual normal equip cost is 7. So we're only really equipping this onto Valduk. Valduk is our only legendary besides Godo Bandit Warlord, but Godo is just a tutor, since there's not too many tutors in red for equipments, unlike white. But yeah, because like that equip cost is pretty ridiculous. So you're just looking to put this on Valduk, make him really huge because of all the lands you're gonna be playing because you're mono red. So, but yes, this is a very good equipment, and it's one of my favorite equipments in recent times. There's also another version of this, which is the Stratus Scythe, which is the imprint, exile a land from your deck, and then creature gets +1/+1 for each land of the name that you exiled. So it's basically just another version of Blackblade Reforged if you don't have to, search out a land to take it to imprint. And then Golden Fist Gauntlets. This is basically the equivalent of our Cranial Plating because you don't have access to that because it's black. 1 mana, a creature gets +1/+0 for each equipment attached to it. Equip cost of 2. So yeah, like I said, basically it's the Cranial Plating version for this deck. It's not as good, but it's still pretty good for an equipment. It's definitely one of the ones that are worth mentioning. And this is our Aura package. We don't really have that many. I think we have 16 Auras, but most of them are just for evasion and stuff like that. But some of the ones that are really cool is the Betrothed of the Fire. 2 mana, sacrifice an untapped creature. Enchanted creature gets +2/+0 until end of turn. So you could sack the elemental tokens that Valduk makes to one-shot somebody with your commander. It's pretty easy to do that. And then you can sacrifice enchanted creature, and all creatures you control get +2/+0 until end of turn. So you could essentially have this in combat with the bottom effect. And if they try and kill your Valduk in response, you can just sack it and then give all your elementals +2/+0. And they do have trample, so there'll be 5/1s whenever they're hitting people in the face. It's going to be pretty big play. And the Betrothed of the Fire for the first effect is alright. I think that the main reason you'd be using it is the bottom effect, because, I mean, why not, right? It's just another way to kind of like win the game on a 2 mana aura. So, pretty cool. Bravado, 2 mana. Enchanted creature gets +1/+1 for each other creature you control. Like I said, it's the same thing with the Betrothed of the Fire. You're going to be making creatures with Valduk, so the, effect of having +1/+1 for each other creature you control is really good, because it could be, +5/+5 or +10/+10. It could be like really big pumps. And it could be enough damage to like get through a lot of blockers and stuff to like trample over if you have a trample equipment. We also have Claws of Valduk and the other version of it, which is just the +1/+0 for each mountain you control. And Claws of Valduk, the only difference is it gives first strike, but those 2 auras are very powerful because we're running 34 mountains, not that many non-mountains, only 4 non-mountains in the whole deck. So it's just a very powerful card. It's like great for just having a huge bunch of power. I wish it gave something like Trample, would be pretty awesome, but First Strike is good too, I guess. Make sure it doesn't die in combat, because it doesn't actually pump toughness. And then we have Frenzied Rages up here. This is just to like note that we have a lot of Menace, and also stuff that says target creature can't block, and stuff like that. So basically, these are in the deck just for evasion, really, or to like make it to where if you're going to block him, you're going to at least lose 2 things. Pretty much, guarantee losing 2 things is always pretty good because, like I said, we don't really have much of a board, so we kind of want to, take away creatures as much as possible when we're attacking with Valduk or our elementals. So next up, we got some really cool combos with Valduk. Sundial of the Infinite, 2 mana, 1, tap it, end the turn, and then activate this ability only during your turn. And what it does is, ending your turn removes everything from the stack that is currently on the stack. And like I said, you can only do it during your turn, so there's no like crazy combos with like, weird stuff on your opponent's turn. But the cool thing with Valduk is if you were to, because he has a trigger at the beginning of your end step, exile your elemental tokens. So you would do that in response to the trigger. You would end your turn, and then you would get to keep all of your elementals, because it says at the beginning of the next end step, not the end step. So you would get to be able to keep the elemental tokens for yourself. So you can amass a really big board by using Sundial of the Infinite. Also, Strionic Resonator is really cool because it allows you to double up his trigger, which is, the elemental tokens. So you just, 2 mana, 2 tap, copy target triggered ability you control. You may choose new targets with copy if it has a target. But essentially doubles them up, so it's another way to kind of like get a huge board really quick and potentially even kill people with just the Strionic Resonator activation for the trigger for Valduk. So both of these cards are really good, and I think that they're really fun to play around with, and just really great. Now, of course, Strionic Resonator doesn't really do much outside of interacting with Valduk. Well, that's like kind of like the unfortunate part. Next up, we are an equipment deck. I decided to toss in the Cauldron package. So I think the Cauldron equipments are some of the more powerful equipments that I personally think they're very good. I mean, Helm of Cauldron is 3 mana. Equipped creature has First Strike, Trample, and Haste, so it's pretty good there. And then, of course, if you control the equipment, Helm, Sword, and Shield of Cauldron, you can make a 4/4 colorless avatar token named Cauldron. And then all of the 3 equipments are attached to it. And then the equip cost is 2 for Helm of Cauldron. Now the other ones, they're a little bit more expensive in equip cost, but I still think that they are very worth it, because Sword of Cauldron is, 4, and then equip creature gets +5/+5, and then whenever it deals combat damage to a creature, remove the creature from the game. Now, the key thing with this is if the creature survives combat, I believe is the way that it has to work. They have to survive combat, you exile it. Otherwise, it's just dead, I think. That's how that works. But the equip cost is 4, so it's technically would be an 8 mana, total invested in equipping this sword. So, but I still think that it's still great. And the one that I really think that is really great is the Shield of Cauldron. 4 mana, equipment name, Sword of Cauldron, Shield of Cauldron, and Helm of Cauldron are indestructible. So it basically protects all of the Cauldron pieces, and then what it does is equipped creature gets indestructible, or is indestructible. So it protects that creature, and it protects the equipment from being destroyed. Now they can be exiled. And now this is, of course, a equip cost of 4, but that, honestly, with how powerful it is definitely well worth it. It's just another, like, dark steel plate, essentially. So I think these pieces are really fun. Like, you could just not have these in. That would probably be perfectly fine without them. I just think that they're a really fun inclusion. Next up, we have card advantage. We don't really have too much card advantage in this deck. We have a few, like, instance and sorceries and the 1 aura that like give us a card, so they kind of replace themselves. But these are like the actual card advantage ones, which is Skull Clamp. We're making a bunch of 1 toughness elementals, so why not Skull Clamp them to draw some cards? They're gonna go away anyways if we don't have the Sundial of the Infinite, so might as well get some value out of them. Because we'll equip it and then we'll draw 2 cards off of them. Because they'll get +1, -1, and Skull Clamp is one of the best cards in Magic, so at least for card advantage wise, it's just immensely powerful. And next up, I thought I would go ahead and include this one. It's not like too good in terms of like drawing, because Massive Memory, 2 mana, and whenever it deals combat damage to, or whenever the creature deals combat damage to a player, you may draw 2 cards. If you do, discard a card from your hand, and then equip cost is 1. Now, Massive Memory is great for just drawing 2 cards and discarding a card, so you can kind of like filter your hand, get bad cards out of your hand, and hopefully keep good cards. But the unfortunate thing is you do have to deal combat damage to a player, so that's kind of the thing. If you don't have Trample on Valduk, and they're just like, it's not that great, in a way, for that to like be a consistent way of drawing cards. So just, you know, it's all right. Next up we have protection, and we kind of saw two of the other protection cards, which is the Shield of Cauldron and the Hammer of Nazan, both give indestructible to the equipped creature. Swift Boots actually just gives hexproof, which is perfect because if you combine hexproof with indestructible, the creature is almost unkillable. The only thing that can really kill it is a mass exile. And there's a reason why Lightning Greaves isn't in this deck, and the main reason being we only have 6 creatures in our deck, and I really don't like having Shroud in an equipment Voltron based deck, because if you have Shroud, it means that you can't target the creature with any of your equips. So it's just better enough to not have a Lightning Greaves. You can definitely put one if you want, but I'd prefer not to. But Swift Boots is perfect. And then Darksteel Plate, 3 mana. It's indestructible, and a good creature is indestructible, and quick cost for 2. It's just immensely powerful. So like basically these are just like no-brainer cards. I think most of these or both of these are included into a majority of equipment-based decks. So these are just auto includes quick cards. And next up we have some little fun stuff. So the reason why we have these 2 cards is Valduk triggers at the beginning of combat, and why not take an extra combat to get more elemental tokens? So we have World at War, 5 mana. Enter the first post-combat main phase this turn. There's an additional combat phase followed by an additional main phase. At the beginning of that combat, untap all creatures that attacked this turn. And then it has Rebound. So then you get to do it again on the next turn. So, just another extra combat phase, essentially. And Relentless Assault's the same way. It's just a cheaper version. 4 mana, untap all creatures that attack this turn. After this main phase, there is an additional combat phase followed by an additional main phase. So, that's essentially how it is. There's just free, basically I win cards that give you multiple tokens. And, why not play these if you're going to be playing a deck that wants to kind of have a mixture of going wide and going big. So that's the main reason why they're in the deck. And that pretty much concludes the deck. Now, of course, there's tons of other stuff in here, like the other equipments and auras, but it's really just not worth going over them because a majority of the equipments are just generic equipments that will go into any deck. And like I said, the auras are most of them are just for evasion, and it's all the 3 ones that weren't focused on evasion. So, there is a fire breathing one, but that one is mainly in there just to draw a card, essentially, and it's 1 mana. But, yeah, the deck is $94. You can easily get it cheaper. I wanted to kind of fit in Hammer of Nazan in, and a few other cards that were kind of more on the pricier side. So, like you said, you can get it cheaper. You can just not have a few of the cards in, replace them with whatever you want, really. This is the deck, and I hope you guys like it. I will be including a non-budget version, which has a few expensive cards in it. I think literally 4 of the most expensive equipment. So, you can choose not to have those. Obviously, the deck will work perfectly fine. But this is basically it. It's kind of like a generic Voltron deck, but I hope you guys liked it, and leave a comment, subscribe, and we'll probably get some more content out. Kind of been not feeling too great, so yeah, I will see you guys next time.